Today we continue with our class of Halachos of Brochos. Today is class number 19. And we start with Sefer Halachos Chaim. And the big subject is listening to Lashon Hara, same subject. And today's subject is whom do not rebuke. The obligation to reprove one's fellow Jew does not apply to non-observant Jew who is in a category of mumar, one who is aware of halachic requirements and ignores them. Okay. Very interesting. So basically, if somebody mumar, so it's not very complimentary title, of course. So he knows that that today is Shabbos and that we're not allowed to desecrate Shabbos. He still does whatever he does. Okay. So are we obligated to rebuke him or not? However, a non-observant Jew who sins out of ignorance must be instructed gently regarding Lashon Hara. Okay. I apologize. So we're talking about Lashon Hara. I apologize. So this non-observant Jew, right? So he speaks Lashon Hara. So you have to stop him also, gently, as they say. Okay. The beauty of Shmiras Lashon can be appreciated even by those who observance levels is minimal and should be shared with them in the earliest opportunity. So just because he claims that he is a different title and he's different kind, so that does not make any difference. All of the laws still apply to them. So if he wants to talk to me, so that's the rule, and should be very strong in our minds. If somebody wants to come to my house, so those are the rules, right? Or don't come to my house. Okay, not do me any favor. So if you want to talk to me, that's the rules how we're going to talk. Nevertheless, one does not rebuke a non-observant person with whom he does not share a relationship. I mean, of course, somebody is talking on the phone very loud, right? And you know that he's a Jew, so you're not going to come and talk to him like this Lashon Hara will be saying. It is obvious that such a reproof will not convince a person to refrain from speaking Lashon Hara in the future, and will only serve to anger him. Okay. This would be similar to the situation where a reproof would cause worse sin to occur, and therefore is inappropriate. So basically, if he's going to do even worse, like why are you wasting your time talking to this guy? Okay. The rule holds true for the observant Jew as well. It is wrong to offer a rebuke to someone with whom one has no real relationship. It is clear that he will not change his ways and that he will be offended by a person's meddling in his affairs. Rebuke in such a case would cause hatred and possibly even more Lashon Hara. So, for example, if you came to another shul, not your shul, and you see people are talking something like Lashon Hara, so you're not the one to rebuke them. Okay, that's what it says. All right, so we stop here. So I continue. So today we continue with Shulchan Aruch, with Mishneh Berurah. Siman is 168, same Siman. We're going to do one Siman from this, from Shulchan Aruch, and then we're going to go to our original book. And the topic is over which bread is to make blessing. And we're up to the Sif number 8. And it says, so I'm going to read without commentaries. Those cakes of bread called ublias. Okay, we don't know what is it. They're going to explain. That are prepared from a stiff mixture of the flour and water. A class is a proper bread. And one must therefore make over them the blessing chamotzi, and the blessing after the meal. On another hand, after those which are prepared from a soft mixture of flour and water, that are very thin, are called niblas. One should make blessing baremine mizoines, and a single blessing which corresponds to the 3 blessings after the meal. Nevertheless, if one makes a meal out of them, he is required to make over them blessing chamotzi and a blessing for after the meal. If one eats them in the middle of the meal, but not as a part of the meal, they require the independent blessing. Therefore, before one eats them, but not after one eaten them. Okay, I'm going to explain all of this. However, those thin wafers on which one puts a confection are secondary to confection, and therefore the blessing one makes over their confection is discharges one of his obligation to make blessing over them. Okay, it sounds very complicated, but we'll try to make it as easy as possible. So we start with Shulchan Aruch from the beginning and with Mishneh Berurah and all of the explanations. So if any questions, just stop me and ask. Okay. So from the beginning, those cakes of bread are called ublias. Ublias, I'm not sure how we resist that are prepared from the stiff mixture of flour and water, are classed as a proper bread. Okay, and one must therefore make over them blessing of chamotzi and blessing after the meal. Okay, so let's see Mishneh Berurah. Since they are made from a flour and water only, just like other bread, even though they are thin, they're nevertheless not compared to the dry kevim, which is discussed in paragraph 7. For the latter are very dry and are not intended to as satisfying food, but only as nibbles as a dessert food. Whereas these ublias are meant to as a satisfying food. Okay. So these ublias, whatever is it, so they do not translate to our language. I mean, so it's something like so it's not a bread like not a loaf of the bread, right? But something made of the flour and water, and it's a stiff mixture, as they say. So it could be like bread, but it's like more flat. I'm not sure what to compare it with. I'm not sure, but okay, but I think we got it. It's like more flat. Like I think maybe something like an English muffin they call it, right? Maybe something like that. So it is 100% bread. Okay, and they say you do not compare to kivim. So kivim, just to remind us, it's like a crackers, something like a very dry. Even though it was they were like made from the same dough, right? Flour and water, right? Same stiff dough, stiff mix. See the stiff mix of stiff dough, but since it is very dry, so people usually don't use as a main course of the meal, right? This crackers or crackers like I would say maybe dried like pretzels. I mean, nobody uses them as a main meal. I mean, if you don't have any other food, I would understand, but otherwise only as a snack. But here they say it's not like that. It's not dry. It's flat, but it's proper bread. Okay. Continue. On the other hand, over those which prepared from the soft mixture of flour and water that are very thin, are called niblas. One should make the blessing, but my name is Zoinus, and a single blessing which corresponds to the 3 blessings after the meal. Okay. So let's see what is this niblas. The Achronim state that these are what are called in Russian malsilke. Nalsilke. I'm not sure what does it mean. So I would say it's like something like a pancakes, like but very thin. So basically you mix dough with water and you got this what they call butter, and you just pour it on a frying pan, and that's what you get. So this is mizoines, let's say, and after you finish it, and you say blessing ala michia. Okay. In Russian, nal silke. Maybe it's not. I don't know what's it mean. In order to prepare them, one mix flour with a great deal of water in a pot into a mixture such as one makes when preparing cooked cereal, and pours the mixture over the vegetables and over the vegetable leaves. And the mixture is then baked in the oven together with the leaves. Okay, that's not how I explained. Okay, so let's see. The same rule applies when it's baked in a pan without. Okay. So my example was second. So first example that Mishneh Berurah says. I don't know. I'm not sure what was it called. It's vegetables, and they pour all of this vegetable souffle or whatever they call it. This liquid dough, right? And then you bake it, and it becomes like a loaf of the cauliflower, let's say, with dough and stuff like that. That's what they do. And the second example that the Mishneh Berurah has is they fry almost without oil, right? Baked without oil. Okay, and same butter. Okay, continue. However, the Shulchan Aruch is only referring to those which are extremely thin and soft. So, as we said, this pancakes, they're very soft. But when they are not at all soft and thin, it follows from what it is stated in gloss in paragraph 14 that they have a ruling of proper bread and must therefore be blessed with hamotzi over them. Okay, so as has been said, that they're very thin, but if they're not thin, so and they're not as soft, so then it's going to be considered like a bread. Okay, I don't know, like some I want to say pita. Maybe that's what it is. But some pita are like thicker, like really without like a pouch, maybe something like that. So it is, even though it is soft from a soft thing, but it is 100% bread. That's what they say. Okay. So, but if as we explained, over the vegetables, they pour this liquid dough over the vegetables, or very thin, and they fry without oil, or just as we said before, that maybe little oil, so in order not to stick to the frying pan. So that's also frying. Okay. So this case it would be mizoines. Okay, continue. Nevertheless, if one makes a meal out of them, he's required to make the blessing over them, chamotzi, and the blessing after the meal. So, and here is the same as we said about other mizoines products, as we were talking about cakes, right? Muffins, all of this other sweet stuff. So, even though they're sweet, even though they're mizoines, but if you're going to eat approximately 8 ounces, right? So in this case, our sage said that you have to make it. So it is a regular meal for other people. So you would need to go wash your hands and make hamotzi. Okay, so I don't know if I told you, I used to buy these big muffins, and it was 8 ounces in each of them, huge. Right, so I would go on muffin, even though it's sweet, is all the things. So I would go wash my hands and make a blessing. Okay. So commentary. Nevertheless, if one makes a meal out of them, so and same is applied, as we said many times, to all of the other Mizrachis. As regard to those cakes called valaplatkes. I'm not sure, maybe it's Polish. Oh, in Prague. Okay, in Prague. Okay. Valaplatkes. I'm not sure what does it mean. In Prague, which is one also prepared from the soft mixture of flour and water, but becomes much thinner and weaker than the nalsilkis mentioned above, because they're spread out when they're baked. Okay. So all right. So what? Okay, continue. The poskim write that one should not make blessing chamotzi over them, even if one makes a meal out of them, since they are not classed as bread at all, and not are comparable to tarisa, discussed in paragraph 15. Just 1 second. Let me try to the soft. So some dishes that are very soft. Okay. So in this case, it's still mizonis, but it's not bread at all. So only on a bread-like product, we make chamotzi if we're going to eat a lot, meaning 8 ounces approximately. Continue. Nevertheless, one makes. The same sentence, suppose. Nevertheless, one makes a meal out of them. He's required to make blessing over them chamotzi. Commentary. How much one must eat of it, be classed as making a meal, is stated in paragraph 6. Okay, we already said that. With respect to the snack bread, and what is stated there also applies here. It's exactly the same concept that applies everywhere. Okay. So he's washing. He must wash his hands, and he says Birchas Hamazon after he finished. Continue. If one eats them in the middle of the meal, but not as a part of the meal, they require independent blessing before one eats them, but not after one has eaten them. Okay, so let's we're going to try to understand what's going on. So first of all, it's a bread meal, and if for example, if we have this bread meal, and we decided in the middle of the meal, we decided to eat a piece of cake. So for this piece of cake, you have to make a separate barem and mizonis, because it's not part of the meal. Right? It's for sure it's dessert. So in this case, they say all of these things are also dessert. Right? That's why you need and then not part of the meal. So that's why, even though you have you said chamotzi, but on as we said before, chamotzi does not cover everything. There are exceptions. So one of the famous exception is wine. Even though bread is very important, it's a staple part of the meal, but wine is so important, is not covered by the bread. Or some things that are not part of the meal, like desserts. So if you want to eat a piece of candy, or you want to eat fruits, right? So or cakes, so they're not, or ice cream, whatever we eat, so it's not part of the meal. Okay. So one more time is commentaries. If one eats them in the middle of the meal, commentary, Mishneh Berurah. There is, if one eats those who are soft and thin, okay, the same ruling applies to all the kinds of bread which are classed as snack bread, as described in paragraph 6. Okay, Magen Avraham. However, see the Biur Halacha where we have explained that the several Achranim dispute this contention of Maggid Abraham. So let's see what do they want from Maggid Abraham. So first of all, we said all this thin dish, whatever is it, whatever we want to call it, pancakes, right? It's considered a snack bread, right? A snack, snack, and we compare it to snack bread. And just 1 second. Meaning if he ate a lot, he would do hamotzi, but since it is snack, so it's not part of the meal, and he has to say separate blessing. Okay. Commentary. But there is a few opinions. There are a few opinions as to what the snack bread is, and if the article is in fact of this, and if the article is in fact not snack bread, but ordinary bread, one should not make a blessing in the middle of the meal. So if so let's say if we eat different bread, so we started with hamotzi on white bread, and now we want white meaning what is it, wheat bread, right? And now you want to eat this oatmeal, this bread made from oatmeal. There is no problem. I mean, you don't. It's also considered bread, so you don't need to make a special blessing, right? So these people, these rabbis, they contend with Maggid Abraham. They say maybe this is actually bread. Well, why saying that you need us to make a special blessing, separate blessing? Okay, continue with commentary. The author states there that it is implied by the majority of the Paskim that the snack bread is a dough which was filled with fruit, right, and then baked, which is the first opinion quoted in paragraph 7. So just to remind us, like about this paragraph 7, what is considered to be a snack bread, right? So snack, we said snack bread, something filled like with fruits, with meat, with cheese, with whatever we filled with, right? It's like a packet. That was first opinion. Second opinion was it's very sweet. So it was mixed with the fruit juices and with the honey, with milk, with all of these beautiful things. So that was the second opinion. And the third opinion, it was very thick and dry, like crackers, right? So that's what they refer to, all of the three opinions. But now the commentators say it's like the Paskim say about the first opinion, like a packet that is filled with something inside. Consequently, one will not lose by making blessing Barei Minei Mizones over this kind of bread in the middle of the meal, if he does not eat it as a part of the meal. So basically, if he wants to eat it as a part of the meal, so as we discussed before, just to remind us. So for example, he has this person has only 2 slices of bread, okay, and then not very big ones, and of course it's not enough for satiation. So he wants to eat some of this snack bread, right? So all of this snack bread would be part of the meal. So since they have eaten for satiation, so he would not need to make a separate blessing. So whatever we eat for satiation does not require separate blessing if that's what his plan, that was his plan originally. But okay. But otherwise, so if it's not for satiation, right, and it was not his plan originally, it was not planned to be part of the meal, so he must say separate Barei Minei Mizones. So one more time. Consequently, one will not lose by making the blessing Barei Minei Mizones on this bread with packets, because as we said, it's one of the 3 opinions, over this kind of bread in the middle of the meal, if he does not eat it as a part of the meal. So as we just explained, what is part of the meal, what is not. He also quotes Chaye Adam, who states that in the case of the bread, which was needed mainly with honey and oil, milk, or eggs, etc., it is proper initially to have in mind to discharge one obligation to make the blessing over it when he makes the blessing hamotzi. If he intends to eat it during the meal, but not as a part of the meal. Okay. So here we're talking about second category. So second category, we said that it was needed with honey, oil, milk, or as we said also there, these are the juices, right? So if he had in mind that it's going to be, as we said, for his satiation, part of the meal, he does not need to make a separate blessing. Otherwise, he does. Okay. So continue. Same sentence, and there is a next Mishneh Berurah. So same sentence. If one eats them in the middle of the meal, okay, we just commented this piece, but not as a part of the meal, okay, as they require independent blessing. Okay, so let's see Mishneh Berurah. For in view of the fact that he does not eat them in order to fill himself, this obligation to make the blessing over them will not have been discharged by the blessing of hamotzi he made over them, so over the bread. So one more time. So if it's not for satiation, it's for because he liked the sweet taste or like feeling inside and stuff like that. So it's not part of the meal. So one more time, this Mishneh Berurah, and we continue. For in view of the fact that he does not eat them in order to fill himself, this obligation to make the blessing over them will not have been discharged by the blessing of hamotzi, meaning that he must make a separate blessing. He made over bread. If one eats a lot of them, that is, if he eats the quantity specified in paragraph 6, as being an amount out of which one makes a meal, okay, one make a meal, then even if he eats them merely as goodies, his obligation to make the blessing over them will have been discharged by the blessing of hamotzi he made before the meal. One more time, and we're going to explain. If one eats a lot of them, there is, if he eats quantity specified in paragraph 6, as we said, approximately 8 ounces, as being amount out of which one makes a meal, right? So he eats a lot of these cakes or the like. Then even if he eats them merely as goodies, his obligation to make the blessing over them will have been discharged by the blessing of hamotzi he made before the meal. This is because if he would eat so large quantity of them outside of the meal, he would need to make the blessing hamotzi over them, and it therefore follows that if he eats them during the meal, this obligation to make the blessing over them will have been discharged by the blessing of hamotzi that he already made prior to the meal. So I mean, the Mishneh Berurah is brilliant as ever. Unbelievable. So he said, okay, so a person is going to eat bread meal, all is good, and he's planning to eat a lot of cakes. How much a lot of cake, or all these the things with fillings, or these crackers, a lot of I mean, I don't think the crackers you can eat that much. I mean, maybe somebody can, but it's not such an easy thing. All right, so we're talking about like these pancakes, let's say, and if he's decided and he's planning to eat these 8 ounces approximately of these pancakes, so we said if he would eat them by themselves, just these 8 ounces of the pancakes, even without bread, he would need to make the blessing hamotzi. So since he already did the blessing of hamotzi, so we're not requiring him to make the mizonos, because he's going to eat a lot of mizonos. Yeah. right? Meaning 8 ounces. Even without bread, he would need he would be obligated to say hamotzi. So, and with blessing of hamotzi on bread, he actually covers all of these things. So I think it's a brilliant explanation. Straightforward and brilliant. Okay, so same sentence because there's one more Mishneh Berurah. If one eats them in the middle of the meal, but not as a part of the meal, they require an independent blessing. Okay, so as we said, it's a snack, right? Before one eats them, but not after one has eaten them. So what does it mean? So before, for example, if we eat a piece of cake or eat fruit during the meal, right? So you make the separate blessing, or you drink wine. You drink wine during the meal. You say "Borei Pricha Gefen" on the wine, but after you finish meal, so Birchas Hamazon actually covers everything that we ate. So commentary, meaning Mishneh Berurah. All this applies only with regard to the baked breads, but as regard to the dough mixture, which was prepared in a pot, is intended to serve as a nourishment, which is intended to serve as a nourishment and as a cooked dish. Such a preparation is always considered form part of the meal. As stated in section 177, we get to it. It should be noted that even if it is filled with fruit, as it is the case with the dish called apple pie, etc., the fruit does not require the independent blessing. This is because the fruit was cooked inside the stuffed dough, and the flour is the most important part of the mixture, and the fruit is therefore secondary to the flour. One should not be stringent, and one should not be stringent and take a little apple from it and make the blessing Borei Pricha Chait, as this would be a blessing in vain. So let's try to understand the Mishneh Berurah. Okay, so if it's snack bread, and he's not going to eat a lot, and we just counted in the last place. So we said that he should make independent blessing, Okay, so let's do Mishneh Berurah. We're going to explain there are 3 ideas here at least, one by one. So one from the beginning. All this applies only with respect to the baked breads, but as regard to the dough mixture, which was prepared in a pot. So I would say that's what they're talking about, this as an example of the apple pie, right? Or some dishes where they, what is it, maybe casserole they call it, I'm not sure. When they pour this liquid dough over the vegetables and they bake it like that. Okay, so it is always mizoinus, as we say, right? But as regard to the mixture, which was prepared in a pot, which is intended to serve as a nourishment, as this vegetables with this dough nourishment, and as a cooked dish, such a preparation is also considered formal part of the meal, right? It's not a snack, as we said before. It should be noted that even if it is filled with fruit, as in a case of dish called apple pie, the fruit does not require independent blessing. So basically, when we eat apple pie, for example, right, or we Danish, maybe Danish is a better example, for us. Okay, so in Danish, you have in the middle, you have these fruits, right? Some kind of preserved fruits, jelly. So you do not make a separate blessing on these fruits. Why? The reason is It's second idea from this piece, that it was baked together. So if it was baked together, and bread, the flour from this dough is the main part of the meal, right? So these fruits in the middle, in this Danish, are secondary. Same as apple pie. Okay, and they are not required independent blessing. Continue. This is because the fruit are cooked inside the stuffed dough, and the flour is the most important part of the mixture. And the fruit is therefore secondary to the flour. One should not be stringent and take a little bit of apple from it and make bare pri chaetz, as would be blessing in vain. So one was a very, very important halacha that we discussed before. We're not allowed to make a blessing in vain. So before a person decides to eat something, whatever is it, he must know what blessing he's going to or she is going to make, and how many blessings. So if a person eats several foods, he or she must first estimate how many blessings I'm going to make. What is the first blessing? What is second blessing? What is covered what? So do not, in order not to overlap. Continue. However, those thin wafers on which one puts confection are secondary to the confection, and therefore the blessing one makes over the confection discharges the blessing over the blessing blessing over them. So now we have like the thin crust, very, very thin, right? And so let's see what the Mishneh Berurah says. However, he comes on the word however. This ruling relates to the basic law concerning snack bread and instructs us that these wafers are not to be classed in that category. So even though it is a dough, in some sense, I mean, it's a straightforward dough, but it's kind of wafer, so it is like a base for a confection to hold it up together. That's the thing. Just wafers are not to be classed in that category. In their case, one must not make the blessing over the baked dough at all. Right? It is a secondary to the confection. So the confection, of course, costs much more money, and it's difficult to make, and that's why a person is buying because of the confection, not because of the dough on the bottom. Okay. So one more time this sentence, we say, however, those thin wafers on which one puts confection are secondary to the confection. So dough is a secondary to confection. Commentary. For one's purpose is not to eat the wafer, but they are merely employed to prevent one dirtying his hands with confection. So, and same applied, just so we know, since we're on the topic, same applies to the ice cream cone, right? So you have this ice cream cone, right? That edible one from Wafer, and so it depends why you're eating this ice cream cone to begin with. So if it's only not to dirty your hands, so in this case, this ice cream cone is going to be like secondary to the ice cream, and blessing on the ice cream would cover. But if you enjoy this ice cream cone, so you would have to make the blessing separately. So you would need to maybe bite. They say blessing, bite a little from ice cream cone, and then continue with ice cream itself. Okay, but if he's only to hold this ice cream, right, and not to dirty his hands, I mean, he has to hold it somehow, right? So in this case, the ice cream is secondary, no blessing on the cone. Consequently, the baked dough is classed as a secondary to confection, as explained fully below, section 212, paragraph 2. Continue. The Achronim state there that it is customary in our localities to put a confection on honey cake called lekach. Lekach flooding in Yiddish. Okay. So I never saw like all of this confection on a cake. I'm not sure. Lekach is a honey cake, right? So cake with a lot of honey. So some confection they put on top. I'm not sure. The honey cake is itself good to eat, and it is according to one's purpose to eat the honey cake as well. It follows that the cake is to be regarded as a principal article, and one must therefore make blessing bareh minei mizonos over it, thereby discharging his obligation to make the blessing over the confection. So now we're talking about not just a thin crust. Let's say if you have what is it? If you have this cheesecake, right? You have cheesecake, and on the bottom you have a thin crust. So this thin crust is only to hold this the whole cake together. That's the thing. So this thin crust, of course, is a secondary to this confection, right? But in this case, when we look at the lekach, so which is pretty tall and it's like substance, and you put some things, some sweet things on top. So of course, all of these sweet things are going to be secondary, and we make bareh minei mizonos on the primary, and it covers everything that we put after, right? But if, just to remind ourselves, if they were baked together, you need to make only one blessing. You don't make two blessings. Okay, continue. It is self-understood that the ruling only applies if they were baked together when exactly here we go together, and when the cake was baked. But if one bakes the honey cake by itself, okay, and afterwards he puts confection on top of it, the confection will not become secondary to it. So in this case, like it's two different dishes that they put into one on top of the other. This is because in such a case, one's purpose is to eat both the confection and honey cake. And the confection is not merely meant to give taste to the honey cake, and one must therefore make the blessing or the confection as well. So one more time, if they were cooked, baked together, so you need only one blessing on a primary. If they were not cooked together, they were joined after that. So in this case, they would need to make second blessing. Okay. So let me read the whole sentence again, because there is second Mishneh Berurah. One more Mishneh Berurah. Second sentence again. However, those wafers on which one puts confection secondary to the confection, and therefore the blessing one makes over this confection discharges one of his obligation to make blessing over them. Okay, commentary 46. Discharges them. If one ate the confection on top of the wafer and left the wafer and not wishes to eat it, to eat the wafer by itself, he must make the prior blessing bareh minei mizonos over it. One more time. If one ate the confection on top of it, or on top of the wafer, and left the wafer, and now wishes to eat the wafer by itself, he must make the blessing bareh minei mizonos over it. So basically, he had this wafer on top of this confection, and he decided not to eat wafer right now because the sweet things, right? That's what he wants to eat, this topping. And now he wants to go back and eat this wafer. So if he would eat them together, As Shulchan Aruch said, the blessing on confection would cover this mizonis part, this wafer. But since he separated, he said shechakol on this confection, and now he decided to eat the wafer. So on wafer, since it was not originally meant to be eaten, so now it is actually he must make the blessing, separate blessing b'remine mizonis. Continue. However, if one ate the wafer together with confection, and a bit of the wafer is still left over without confection on it, it does not need to make the independent blessing over it, or over the remaining wafer. Okay, so here's different situation. So he made one blessing on this the whole product, meaning this wafer with confection. And he ate them together, but then a little wafer left over. So even though there is no confection, nothing on top, so we say it was originally covered, so now it's covered. So if it's a lot left, that's a problem, but little is no problem. For the view of the fact that he ate the wafer mainly together with the confection, and it was then considered secondary to the confection, we do not bother about how he finishes eating it. So since it was always during his meal secondary to this confection, so it was covered, and if there is some leftovers that he ate, there is no problem. So I would say, I would add for myself, I think a different example, which apply, I would say apply to us more. I would say if somebody eats more, like cereal, right, with milk, and you make only one blessing on the cereal, just so you know, blessing on the cereal, and covers milk as well. So milk is secondary. So if you ate as usually you finish cereal first, and then there is a little milk left, right? So they say there is no problem, even if you eat this milk or drink this milk, because it was covered initially with the mizonis. Okay, so we have some time, so let's do another halacha. It's shorter, much shorter, so we should be able to finish it. Okay, so next halacha, number 9. So we have 168.9. If one eats proper bread, then even if he eats less than the olive bulk of the bread, so olive bulk, we said approximately 1 ounce, like 28 grams, 30 grams, approximately, right? Okay. He must make the blessing hamotzi over it. However, however, one should not make any blessing after he ate bread, unless he has eaten as much as olive bulk of it. Okay, so let's read from the beginning, and we're going to explain in details. From the beginning, halacha 9. If one eats a proper bread, so 100% bread, but say a little piece, right? Then even if he eats less than kazayas, less than olive bulk of bread, he must make the blessing of hamotzi over it. So as we said last time, even if you eat few crumbs, right? So you still need a little leftover. So you still need to make the hamotzi blessing. But as we said, when you wash your hands, you don't make blessing. If that's what your intention, eat kazayas or less than kazayas, you even less than 2 kazaysim, right? So you don't make the blessing over the washing of the bread, right? But okay, so we say, however, one should not make any blessing after he has eaten bread, unless he has eaten as much as olive bulk of bread. So, but same qualification as we said before applies to all other foods. So if a person ate less than kizayas, less than 28 to 30 grams of food, right? He does not or she does not make the final blessing at all, because it's not enough food. Some foods can combine, for example, solid foods can combine into to add to the amount, or liquids can combine with liquids, right? But liquids do not combine with the solids. So solids combine with solids, but liquids with liquids, but they don't combine with each other to determine the amount of food eaten. So one more time, we need minimum kezayis, minimum 28 grams, 20 grams to say the after blessing. Okay, comment in. 1 second. Do not make any blessing. So he said, do not make any blessing. Comment in. There is neither blessing for after the meal, nor after the nor other after blessing. So meaning no birchas hamazon, nor any other blessings. Okay. I think we still have time, believe it or not. Ooh, it's very long. Okay. Let's see. We have time. So let's at least start this CF. We're not going to finish, but at least start. Have some ideas. So CF number 10. So it says, a ruling with respect to the crumb balls, there's a bits of bread stuck together by the means of broth. Okay, there is etc. Is as follows. If the individual bits were boiled, then if they are as large as the olive size, meaning as we said, this 28, 30 grams, one must make the blessing of hamotzi and the blessing after the meal, even if they do not have the appearance of the bread. So now we're talking about bread that were subsequently cooked. So if it was, we're going to go in details, but for now, right? So, but if it has bigger pieces, kezayis, I would say kezayis without all this liquids, like kezayis when it was in dried form. So we need to make hamotzi, right? Okay, so it was cooked. So big pieces of bread were cooked. That's the subject here. However, if they are not as large as olive, so small crumbs, not crumbs, but for like croutons, small pieces, right? As olive. Then even though they seem to have the appearance of bread, one must not make over them the blessing of hamotzi. So because, as you said, these croutons, they're much smaller, so not hamotzi. Because why? They were cooked in the soup. Even I would say maybe it's not that they were cooked in the bowl, in a pot with a soup, but they could have been cooked in a bowl. So if you say, as we learn in our Shabbos class, like the bowl could be your secondary or tertiary vessel, and when the liquid is hot above Yad Saledas Bo, so for sure it's going to cook this croutons or pieces of bread. Okay, but just 1 second. Go back a little. However, if they are not as large as olive, then even though they seem to have appearance of the bread, okay, one must not make over them blessing of hamotzi. So because it's small pieces, and the blessing of after the meal. So one more time because they're cooked. But the blessing bareminem is zoinus, and a single blessing that corresponds to the 3 blessings for after the meal. Okay, so it's 100% mizoinus, even though it was bread initially, right? But then it got cooked, so it changed its status. If the individual bits of bread, so we're talking about bread, right after the fact, bread were not boiled, but joined to each other by the means of honey or broth, so something that some liquid that joined them. Then, if the bits are as large as the olive, they should make the blessing hamotzi over them, even if they do not have appearance of bread. Okay, so they stuck together by they're very big pieces. right? So they still make hamotzi even they do not look like bread. So in the first example that we gave, this piece of bread, it was like a piece of bread they put in a soup and it was cooked. Okay. However, if they are not as large as an olive, right? Then if they have an appearance of bread, so we're going back to the first case. It is evident that evident and obvious that they are bread. So you see with your own eyes that it's bread. One must make the blessing, Barami name is Zoinus, and the blessing of, blessing of Hamotzi, the look like bread, so Hamotzi, and the blessing after the meal. But if they do not have appearance of the bread, one must make the blessing of them, Barami name is Zoinus. So it's two things, appearance and size, just so you know. Of course, I mean, we're not going to cover today, but just to get us general idea. And the single blessing over which corresponds the three blessing for after the meal. If bits of bread were neither boiled nor joined together, but are merely bread crumbs bread crumbled into very tiny bits, then all of the pieces are not as large as olive and do not have the appearance of bread. One must nevertheless make the blessing hamotzi of the blessing after the meal and the blessing of the meal. So we're going to learn it's so simple here. So now we're going to Rima. So Rima says, see below 184, paragraph 6, how much one must eat in order to become obligated to make the blessing for after the meal over it. So I mean, it's a lot of crumbs, I would say, person should eat. Okay, you know what? We can stop here. Maybe a little shorter class, but let's stop here. So I don't want to go into details of this halacha, but because as you see, that's a lot of information. Okay. So we stop here. Any questions? Go ahead. If not, wish you a good Shabbos and until next week. Be'Ezrat Hashem. Okay.
Good Shabbos, thank you.
Good Shabbos. Bye-bye.